As a health coach and as one who has been battling a chronic illness, I keep getting asked the same question that's pertinent right now with the virus that we're facing, and that is, how can I protect my immune system? Well, what I want to talk to you is what I believe is a single most important factor in helping our immune system, and that is reducing stress. Why? Because there's no quicker way to shut down your immune system than to be in a state, often chronic state of stress, as so many of us are in our busy, demanding lives. I learned this the hard way, as I shared in a previous video, what that did for me in developing Lyme disease and the challenge that I've had this last year in learning how to shut down that stress so that my body could heal. So giving some background and understanding how chronic stress works, we have two systems of the nervous system. We have the sympathetic system, our fight or flight response, and the parasympathetic nervous system. Now these systems are perfectly designed to keep us safe and protect us from danger. That if we are met with a threat, which used to be life or death threat, was being chased by a bear in our early days of humanity. If we were approached by a bear, then the body, to ensure our survival, would divert all of its energy from the systems that weren't needed in that moment. We're not worried about digestion when we're fighting for our life, or our immune system. All that energy is being converted from those body systems to our cells, to our muscles, so our senses are alert and heightened so we can run from danger, or our muscles become stronger so we can fight. So our body has that burst of adrenaline. Well, the reason why that's pertinent is when you're used to living in that state, running on adrenaline, that can feel almost addictive, feeling those heightened senses and that energy that we're not aware that we are depleting our resources. And we're only designed to take on that type of state for a short period of time. Once the bear leaves, our body shuts down the sympathetic nervous system and turns back on our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our relaxed state. It's in that system our energy is diverted back to our digestive system. We can break down food, to our immune system to fight off illnesses, the processes that aren't needed when we're in a state of danger. Well, that's a perfect system when it's in perfect balance to keep us safe and heal. The problem is that our biology has not adapted as quickly as our environment. And our body interprets things other than bears as life or death situations. For example, emotional traumas. And as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, neurons that fire together wire together. That our brain tends to make associations of painful, stressful, or scary situations. It binds those, it creates a memory. And next thing we know, our body is constantly perceiving threats around us, not being able to determine what's life-threatening and what's not. So when we're in a chronic state of stress, that means that our digestive system is impaired and our immune system is impaired. We're not going to fight something off. The diagram, I want to show how that affects us and how that affects our body. We have a conscious and a subconscious mind. Well, when we're in a relaxed state, that energy is flowing openly, and we're able to consciously interpret our environment and act accordingly. We're more likely to be relaxed, alert when needed and relaxed when needed. Our subconscious mind communicates with the body. When we go into that fight or flight state repeatedly, it creates a memory. Now, once we're in a state of stress, here, the threat is communicated to the body goes into high alert and reacts. Then once the threat is gone, this door opens. Now our energy flow is back in the body, in those other body systems. What happens is when we have too many threats, this trap door between our conscious and our subconscious mind actually closes. So we're no longer communicating. Now we're communicating on a subconscious level. And this is where we'll get into a state of constant stress. where they're constantly feeling that adrenaline, the body's decided there's too much. We're backed up here. There's too many threats. We need to stay in this height alert. That's cutting people off from their body, from the signals they receive in their body. Now, this is important for reasons that I'm going to explain in a little bit as they relate to our energy flow, to bioenergetics, and to how we perceive information, which is why when we're in that chronic state of stress, our body is constantly perceiving threats. It's a self-perpetuating loop where we're creating emotional triggers, and we're not seeing clearly in our conscious mind. We're reacting from a subconscious state, which means, blow-ups, emotional triggers, anger, fear. A lot of irrational behavior can come from that because we're not able to consciously interpret and clearly interpret what's actually going on in our environment, in that self-perpetuating loop. As our mind is making all these connections with our outside environment, it might be some comment that someone said 20 years ago that made you feel like you weren't capable of succeeding or you weren't good enough. And that program is still running in the background, using up energy constantly, so that anything in your environment that could trigger that feeling feels like life or death, feels like stress to your body. As it's running, that energy is being used to run that program instead of to heal, which just compounds the problem. With our immune system shut down, we're not having that energy to heal. We're also not having it for creativity. With that trap door between our conscious and our subconscious mind shut, not only are we not receiving information up through our body from the environment around us, but we're not receiving that inspiration this direction either. And we might be trying our best to override that situation, but in the meantime, all this energy is being expended because we're trying to avoid those feelings. And this is why, as we'll talk about later, being able to just go straight to the source, straight to our body, and identify where those emotions are being blocked, addressing those instead of carrying them is going to feel so much better. Which is why it's become so important to be able to manually switch yourself into that parasympathetic state, which for those of you that have been in a chronic state like I was, has taken a lot of extra work. And learning some specific breathing techniques has allowed me to manually shift that and create a new pattern where I'm able to go back and forth between those states. When my life got disrupted with illness and I stepped out of my routine, I panicked. Felt like my identity was gone. I was so used to being busy and being forced to slow down that I imagine many of you are feeling this way. You're so used to your routine. There's some fear associated with, what do I do now? Who am I now? And what's going to come up? That I realized part of the reason, a big part of the reason of why I was making myself so busy was to avoid what I was going to feel in the stillness. When you're quiet, when you relax, that's when your body heals. That's when the emotional stuff comes up, ready to be healed. And that feels uncomfortable. I was afraid of that. That for me, it took a major chronic illness that forced me to slow down, forced me to address those things, and realize that feeling them and letting them go felt so much better than hanging on to them. So I'm saying this especially to those of you that might be feeling a little bit of panic right now, that are used to being busy. This is such a great and scary opportunity that if you can just sit with that discomfort, just allow those feelings to be there, you're gonna feel so much better to let it go. You're gonna have more energy to devote to your life, to your creativity, to your family, that you get to the point. For me, it was a big deal to be able to just sit with myself and do nothing and be okay, to just enjoy being, enjoy the stillness. That I've learned who we are being is just as important, if not more important, than what we are doing. It's what we do in those quiet moments, which is why meditation is so important. Clearing our mind, clearing our belief systems and our distortions that changes our external world far more than what we do out there could do. We're going to keep attracting the same situations and perceiving things in the same way and not getting the full pleasure and enjoyment out of what we do while we're still running those programs, while we're still seeing our world through those distorted lenses. So my challenge to you, an invitation to you, is to be courageous, to allow this time to slow down and see what comes up and see what you feel and breathe into it. Incorporate these breathing techniques that I'm sharing with you to feel those things, to adopt a practice of meditation, to allow yourself that time. That is for as much as for as much activity as we do, we also need to slow down. Don't be afraid of it. It will settle. It will settle and you'll normalize again. And I can tell you now, losing my identity and not doing the things that I used to do, I'm feeling more at peace and more at ease. And now going back into those things, I'm finding them to be so much more fulfilling because I'm showing up not out of fear or running on adrenaline, but just showing up as my authentic self, experiencing the world in an authentic way.